Okay, in this video I'm going to walk through explanations to pretty much all, actually, of the answers to the test we took on chapters 9 and 10. First of all, the first couple of pages were no calculator pages, so remember there are things I'm going to expect you to be able to do without a calculator. Second of all, this section 1 asks you to find all square roots of a number. Actually, two different ones. First one was 81, second one was -1. Let's focus on this first one here, square root of 81. In order to do that, what I told you that you should be able to do is memorize squares at least. For example, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 5 squared is 5 squared is 25, what am I saying? 6 squared is 36, and so on. I'm going to end up uncovering the answer over here, and that's why I'm hesitating a little bit, but I want you to be able to memorize this all the way up to 12, really. 12 squared is 144. And I also told you you should be able to go the other way. You should be able to realize that the square root of 144 goes back, and you eliminate that exponent, and the square root of 144 is 12. But really, that's only half the story. You could have gotten to 144 if you'd multiplied -12 times -12. And this word here, all square roots, should have been a hint to you to remind you to do that. So similarly, for 81 here, you taking the square root of 81, let's see if I can get this pen to work. Square root of 81, eliminate that exponent, is 9, but it's a plus or minus 9. Because you could have gotten to 81 by multiplying -9 times -9, and that's why this answer here appears. On the other hand, square root of -1, the answer is no square roots. Excuse me. And that's because you cannot take the square root of a negative number. If you do, well, think about it. There isn't anything that you can multiply by itself to get to -1. You could try 1 times 1, you're not going to get there. You could try -1 times -1, but that becomes +1 also. So you're ending up trying -1 times +1, but that's not squaring. Those are two different numbers, -1 and +1. So there are no square roots for -1, there are no square roots for any negative number. Let's go on to the next page. But for number 3, that's not taking the square root of a negative. Another thing I told you is that a square root sign acts just like parentheses in PEMDAS. You do what's inside the square root first, and then you figure out what to do with the negative. So go ahead and take the square root of 36, you'll get plus or minus 6, then you apply that negative. I'd rather see you just call that -6, but I said it was okay for anybody who wrote down plus or minus 6, as long as you understood that, that the negative did not disqualify things. As long as you did not write no square roots, you were fine. Square root of 100 is plus or minus 10. That goes right back to the previous slide. I'm going to go back there. And there we have 100 matches up with 10 squared. Moving on to question 5. In this case, you had to do some plugging in. You were given a formula, b squared minus 4ac. You were asked to take the square root of that whole thing. And you were asked first to plug in these values. And that's exactly what I've done here. I went ahead and plugged in the numbers that I was given, 6 squared for b squared, minus 4 times a times c. I simplified things a little bit here. I went ahead and multiplied the 1 times the 5 and got 5. So it's minus 4 times 5. You probably would have written minus 4 times 5 times 1. Anyway, minus 4 times 5 is -20. 6 squared is 36. So in the radical, you should have 36 minus 20. And you're ending up taking the square root of 16, which is plus or minus 4. On this second one here, plugging them in, again, b turns out to be 36, or b squared rather, turns out to be 36, but this time minus 4ac is minus 4 times 2, which is minus 8, times 5, which is minus 40. 36 minus 40 is -4, and the square root of -4 is undefined. There are no square roots for a negative number. Moving on to the next one. Question 7. I've got this circled here. Try to ignore that for a second. So let's cover that up. You were asked to add this polynomial together with this polynomial. And you might have been tempted, like I've written down here, to just start writing one under the other. I don't care whether you do addition horizontally or vertically. If you'd done it vertically, you might have been tempted to put this right over here. But what I wanted you to realize is that this is written out of order. This is not in standard form. And unless you put it in standard form, you might then be tempted to put the 2 under here. And you're going to end up with problems. So instead, I rewrote the order of this first one. 3 is the largest exponent, so it goes out front. It's x cubed, or x to the third, plus 7x squared. I left a blank here for x. Look at this. There's a 3, there's a 2, there's no exponent of 1, there's just an exponent of 0. So I left this blank here for myself, and then I did plus 9. That way it made it easy to line things up underneath. The 4x squared goes under the 7x squared. The negative 5x has a place to go. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had any place to put the negative 5x. And the 2 goes under the 9. Now I just add up the columns. And it does become easy. X cubed, 7 and 4 make 11. 0 minus 5 means negative 5x, and 9 and 2 make 11 again. So that's the answer I was looking for. Let's move on to question 8. And this time, I've got, well, let's cover this up again, just for a second. I've got that problem. Again, I don't care if you do it horizontally or vertically. I prefer vertically, so that's the way I'm going to show you how to do it. And this time, 2, and then 1, and then no exponent. This is written in standard form. Let's double check this one. 2, and then 1, and then no x's. Okay, so they're already in standard form. I'm just going to write the 1 right under the other. The negative 3x squared pairs up with the x squared. The 5x pairs up with the negative x. But what I have to remind myself is that I'm subtracting this whole thing. Don't lose sight of that. And also, if you're going to do it horizontally, make sure that you're subtracting every piece, not just the first one. But I prefer vertically. So I've got it written this way. Once I've written it this way, I prefer, as I've taught you, to change every sign. Addition is way easier to keep yourself straight about than subtraction. Subtraction leads to a lot of simple mistakes. So now everything's paired up, and I'm just going to add everything. So the x squared plus the 3x squared becomes 4x squared. The negative x and the negative 5x becomes negative 6x, and so on. This green right here is the answer I was looking for number 8. Okay, I think I'm going to stop the video here because I'm not going to make it through all of them. So what I'll do is have one video that was for the 2 yellow sheets and a separate video that was for the 2 white sheets.